So this is the 8th grade quiz guide for the inequality quiz coming up. Basically, if you know how to solve an equation, you can solve an inequality. It's the exact same procedure except for the one rule change. And that one rule change is if you ever divide or multiply by a negative number when solving for an inequality, you have to flip the direction of the symbol in the middle. Other than that, it's the exact same as an equation. Add your numbers, subtract your numbers, get your x's on the same side first. But if you ever multiply or divide by a negative number, you have to switch the direction of the symbol in the middle. So let's see that in action here. So um, draw my line down the middle. I need to get my x's together. So I'm going to subtract an x on both sides. So I have 10 bigger than 5x minus 20. And that is the bigger than symbol, not a 7. Try to make that better. Then I need to get x by itself. So I'm going to add 20 to both sides. So I get 30 is bigger than 5x. Then divide by 5 to get rid of the times by 5. And I get 6 is bigger than x. And that would be my answer. So no need to flip there because I was only working with positive numbers when I divided. On this side, I would move the 2x over by subtracting it. Again, I want to move the entire chunk over. That's why I'm subtracting, not dividing, because I want to move the x along with the number. So this goes away. I'm left with 30 is bigger than or equal to, and this would be 3x and then plus 9. So I want the x by itself, so I'm going to subtract the 9 on both sides. I get 3x less than or equal to 21. Divide by 3, divide by 3, and we get x is less than or equal to 7. Oops, less than or equal to 7. There we go. Again, no need to flip because I was dividing by a positive number. Number 3, I'm going to take away 10. Well, let me draw my line down here. Take away 10 from both sides to get rid of it. Remember that 10 is positive because the negative is not with the 10, the negative is with the 2. Remember, the negative or the minus only applies to the number it's in front of. It does not apply to the number it's behind of. So 10 is still positive, so I get rid of it by subtracting. I get negative 2x is bigger than or equal to 24. Then I'm going to divide by negative 2, and because I'm dividing by a negative number, I'm going to flip the symbol in the middle, and then 24 divided by 2 is negative 12. So that would be my answer. X less than or equal to negative 12 because I flipped the symbol in the middle because I divided by a negative number. Now 4 is kind of interesting. For 4, I have a negative on the outside, and there's actually 2 ways of doing this. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to show you here, though, just to be consistent. So in order to get rid of this negative 2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute it to both numbers on the inside here. Remember, when you have a number right next to the parentheses, it means you can take it and multiply it to the numbers that are inside the parentheses, and that way you get rid of the parentheses. So negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times minus 7 is plus 14. 2 times 7 is 14, and then the two negatives cancel out. That's going to be less than or equal to negative 14. So now I solve it like normal. Subtract 14 from both sides. I get negative 2x is less than or equal to negative 28. Then you divide by negative 2. And you get x, and then I'm going to flip the symbol again because I divided by a negative number. So x is bigger than or equal to 14. Again, it does not matter what the end number comes out to be. If you ever divide by a negative number, you're going to flip the symbol in the middle. For number 5, let's see, I'm going to move the 4x over by adding it because it is a minus 4x or a negative 4x. I'm going to add it to both sides. So I get 6x plus 10 is less than negative 8. So now you're going to subtract 10 from both sides. Again, you don't flip with subtraction. Subtraction is okay. You don't need to flip for that. And then divide by 6. And we get x is less than negative 3. Again, as long as you're dividing by a positive number, it's okay. It doesn't matter if the number there is already negative or not. As long as the number you're dividing by is positive, you're good. For this one, I'm going to start the same way I did number 4 here, is distribute the 3. So 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times minus x is just minus 3x. Greater than or equal to, and just bring everything else down. Again, don't forget the importance of bringing things down as you work them. Now I want to get my x's on the same side, so I'm going to add 3x to both sides. I'm going to get 12 is bigger than or equal to 7x plus 19. Then I'm going to subtract the 19 from both sides and get negative 7 is bigger than or equal to 7x. And then I'm going to divide once again. And in this case, I'm going to divide by a positive 7 because I want to get rid of that 7 with the x. And I get negative 1 is bigger than or equal to x. And again, I didn't flip here because I divided by a positive number. So whenever you divide by a positive number, you keep the symbol the same and you don't flip it. The next ones are a little bit of word problems, so you have to kind of set it up here. So Jerry's making a garden. He wants the length to be 3 more feet than the width. If the perimeter can be no more than 26 feet, how long can the width be? All right, so we have two items here. We have the length can be no more, or sorry, the length of the garden can be no more than 3 more feet than the width. So the length wants to be 3 more feet than the width. So let's have the width here. That means the length has to be the width plus 3. So the length has to be the width plus 3. 3 feet more than the width. The length is 3 feet more than the width. So my perimeter, remember, is width plus width plus length plus length. That's how you get the perimeters. 2 widths and 2 lengths. Well, the widths are going to stay widths. But the length, remember, the length is 3 more than the width. That's width plus 3. And this length is also width plus 3. And this perimeter can be no more than 26 feet. So it can be less than 26 feet. It can be equal to 26 feet. It just can't be bigger than 26 feet. So this is how I'd set the problem, is I have width and width, which is the width of my garden, plus width plus 3 plus width plus 3, which is the length of my garden. And then I'm going to add them all together and then solve the equation. So 1, 2, 3, 4 W's plus 6 is less than or equal to 26. Then we solve it by subtracting 6 from both sides. We get 4W is less than or equal to 20. And then divide by 4 and divide by 4. And then we get W has to be less than or equal to 5 in order for this to work out. Otherwise, the garden's not going to be 26 feet. It's going to be more than 26 feet in perimeter. So this requires you to kind of redefine one of the aspects of the problem. Instead of just saying L and W, you have to think about, well, if L is 3 feet more than the width, instead of writing L, I can write this instead. Instead of writing L, I can write width plus 3. That represents L. Same thing here. Width plus 3. That represents this L. So you have to kind of think about variable substitution here and how to rewrite variables that make it more useful for you. Next one's a little bit more straightforward. He earns $300 in a week, buys packs of candy that cost $6 each. How many packs can he buy in a week while still having $120 left over? So he earns $300 in a week, so that's how much he gets. Now he's going to spend or lose $6 for each pack of candy. We'll do C for candy. And he wants to know how much can he buy, how many packs can he buy, and still have $120 left in the week. So he wants this amount. So this is the money he has, right? This is the money he has. He wants this to be bigger than or equal to 120. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mind if he has more money, but he does not want this to be less than 120. He can be equal to 120, and he can be more than 120. He just can't be less than 120. So the amount of money he makes and spends has to be less than 120 in order for this equation to work. Well, let's see what it does. So I subtract 300 from both sides. We're going to see how many packs of candy can he buy in this current state here and still keep his finances where he likes them. So 120 minus 300 is going to give me negative 180. Then I'm going to divide by negative 6, divide by negative 6. And I get, see now I divided by a negative, so I'm going to flip this and be C is less than or equal to 30. So what this means here is that he can buy up to 30 packs of candy a week and still have $120 left over. If he does less than that, then he's going to have more money left over, which is fine. He just cannot be more than 30. That's why it says C is less than or equal to 30. C can be equal to 30, C can be less than 30. It just cannot be more than 30. Next two are also word problems. So a water gallon tank holds 50 gallons of water. Let's write that down, 50 gallons of water. But springs a leak. The leak leaks out at a rate of 2 gallons every hour. So 2 gallons every hour. And we're leaking out, so we're subtracting. So 50 minus 2 gallons every hour. And he wants the tank to have at least, so it can have more than, And it can have equal to. It just cannot be less than 35. So remember, this is the water in the tank. This is the H2O in the tank, which is we get by doing this little operation here, 50 minus 2H. And we want this H2O, we want this water to be bigger than or equal to 35 gallons by the end of how long we ever patch the hole for. So if we do this here, minus 50, minus 50, we get negative 2H is bigger than or equal to negative 15. And then we, of course, divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, and we get H is less than or equal to, and the negative 15 divided by negative 2 is 7.5. So he has 7.5 hours to patch the hole. If he does it in less time, he's obviously going to have more water left over. But if he goes past 7.5 hours, he's not going to have that 35 gallons left in the tank for whatever he needs it for. So remember, losing or leaking is a subtraction problem when you put it in as an equation. So you start with 50, you lose or subtract 2 gallons every hour, and then this cannot be less than 35. So it can be more than, it can be equal to, it just cannot be less than 35. The cab company one's the same way. So 65 cents per mile, so 0.65 per mile. So that means for every m. So I'm going to do I'm going to do times by m. Remember, the word per here means multiply this to the miles. So 0.65 times n, and this much flat charge. So remember, that flat charge is stuff that's being added to the end of a problem, not multiplied. Now she only has $10, which means that, remember, this isn't how much money she's spending. This much spent per mile plus this much spent as a flat charge. This cannot be more than 10. It can be equal to $10. It can be less than $10, but it cannot be more than $10. We want to figure out how many miles can she go, how many M's can she use to make sure that this stays under 10. Well, again, just like before, we're going to get rid of my first thing by subtracting. So we're going to have 0.65 M is less than or equal to. Now again, I didn't divide. I did subtract, but I didn't divide by negative, so the sign does not flip. So 8.25. And then just like before, we're going to divide this by my multiplier. So divide it by 0.65. And you get a amount of less than or equal to 12.69, roughly. Whoops, sorry about that. So 12.69 miles is about as far as she can go on the $10 that she has. So when she's making her plans, she better make sure that they're within that mile range. And the last part's about graphing. So graphing inequality can be a little tricky at first. So the first thing you want to do when graphing an inequality is to get it in slope-intercept form. So basically, you want to solve for y. You want y to be by itself. So let's find this out. So I want y to be by itself, which means I want to move the 4x. And not just the 4 either. I want to move the entire 4x. I want to get it away from the y. So I'm going to subtract it. So I have 2y is less than 10 minus 4x. Now, again, I want the y by itself, so to get rid of the 2 by dividing. So divide by 2. Now remember, division happens to the entire side each time. So that means that this entire thing, the 10 and the negative 4, both get divided by 2. So y is less than 5 minus 2x. So you have to solve for y first, which involves moving the x over, usually by adding or subtracting, and then dividing any numbers that are multiplied to 2. Now you want to graph this. Now graphing it comes in 2 stages. The first thing is graph the line. So we're going to look at this as if it was an equal sign. So imagine this as this, y equals 5 minus 2x. How would you graph that line? Well, you know that 5 tells you where to start. So you're going to start up here at 5. And the negative 2 means you're going to go down 2 and right 1. That way you get that downward slant. Down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. Just to get myself some better room here, we'll say that's 1, 2, right 1, 1, 2, right 1. And then you could also be a rebel and go up 2 and left 1. That's the same way. Up 2, left 1. Now, there's 2 stages to this, as I said. The first thing is to figure out, is your line dotted or solid? If you do not, if you have one of these symbols, this is a dashed line. If you have one of these symbols, this is a solid line. So think about the line under the inequality means there has to be a line on the graph. If there's no line under the inequality, then it's just simply a dashed or a dotted line. So that would be how I'd graph the line part of this. Now, inequality is also another aspect, is that they're shaded, because remember, inequality has many different answers that could work for it. If I say x is less than 3, there's a lot of numbers that are less than 3 that I can use for x. So the way you figure out how to shade is you look back to what you saw from the beginning and figure out, is y bigger than or is y less than? If y is less than, like this was here, then you're going to shade down from the line. So you shade from the line down. So all this area are correct solutions to this inequality here. If it was y was bigger than, then you'd shade up. Just think less than means down, bigger than means up, but it always depends on what the y is. So look for the y and figure out from the y, do I go up or down? Same thing for this one here. 3x minus y less than or equal to 6. Again, gotta get y by itself, so subtract the 3x. You get negative y less than or equal to 6 minus 3x. Then I don't want negative y, I want positive y. So I'm going to divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, divide by negative 1, and that's going to flip my symbol here. So negative 3x becomes plus 3x, positive 6 becomes negative 6, all that good stuff. So again, didn't happen here because I was dividing by a positive 2, but because I'm dividing by a negative 1, that happens. So now I need to graph this. So again, graph it as if it was an equal sign. So you start at negative 6, and then my slope is 3, so you go up 3 and right 1. Up 3, right 1, up 3, right 1, or you can go down 3 and left 1. Either way works. Now I need to figure out my two things. First is what type of line this is. Well, it has a dash under the inequality. So that means this is going to be a solid line straight through, which is going to get butchered here because I'm trying to graph it using my mouse, which is a little bit difficult, but that would be how you would do it, is you'd graph it as a straight line just like you would any normal line, and then you need to think about where to shade. Well, it says y is bigger than or equal to. So y is greater than, y is more than. So I'm going to shade up from the line. So you can put your pencil or pen on the line and just kind of draw an arrow up, and that's the part that you shade. Or conversely, you can draw an arrow down if you're doing less than, and that'd be the part that you shade. But remember, it comes in 3 parts for graphing an equation, if we take all the steps. You have to first graph it as if it was a linear equation with an equal sign, then you have to figure out if it's solid or dotted, then you have to figure out to shade up or down. So the two main things are solid or dotted, and then shade up and down. If you can remember those, then you're good. So that covers the inequality review. Hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day.